Welcome everyone to another video of answer writing discussion. Over here, we are going to talk about 3 questions from our mains daily answer writing practice. We are going to talk about GS3 environment. The syllabus of the same is conservation, environmental pollution and degradation, and environmental impact assessment. Let us see the 3 questions. First question is about single-use plastic. We have witnessed that how government have banned such kind of plastics, but despite that, it's not significant enough to stop the plastic pollution. So we'll talk about that in the question number 1. In question number 2, we will talk about the extent of biodiversity loss and how it is impacting the entire ecosystem. The third is current affair based question. Over here, we are going to talk about the recent Supreme Court judgment about the reproductive right of women. Now let's see the very first question. Ban on single-use plastic is a significant step, but not a complete solution to curb plastic pollution. Comment. In this question, you have to first talk about that it's a significant step to ban single-use plastic. We will call it SUPs. However, it's not still a complete solution to curb plastic pollution. Comment. In the introduction, you have the opportunity to talk about the definition of plastic pollution. You can talk about variety of plastic related items. Plastic derived items are considered plastic pollution because of the nature, such as they are non-biodegradable. They create a lot of environmental pollution related issues. You can also talk about the government's notice that MOEFCC notified plastic waste management amendment rules, under which it prohibited use of single-use plastic items. And also there were certain other guidelines, so you have to understand that there are certain legal aspects over here, like plastic waste management amendment rules, apart from that extended producer responsibility, etc. All of this encompassing in Environmental Protection Act. So this is something that you can write in the introduction. In the first body, you can talk about how ban on single-use plastic is a significant step. The very first is limiting single-use plastic consumption. By banning, it will definitely curb the production. At the same time, it will also disincentivize people to use the kind of plastic that creates a lot of hurdles with respect to environmental pollution. The second is mitigation of microplastic generation. Now, single-use plastic, they tend to live longer in the environment and create different kind of issues, specifically microplastic, that can enter the food chain and have magnifying impact. The third is to mitigate climate change and control greenhouse emission. The production of plastic itself is a very energy consuming thing, and because of the same, we have witnessed a lot of pollution derived from the production of plastic and the use of plastic in the environment. The fourth is India's climate target. Now, India has decided and committed target with respect to climate change. Over here, we have talked about how India is going to decrease its carbon intensity by 33 to 35% of GDP by 2030. Now, this kind of target is also achieved through similar steps like banning of single-use plastic. The fourth is preserving of marine ecosystem. The biggest victim that single-use plastic had was marine ecosystem. Over here, we have witnessed lot of issues specifically in the aquatic bodies. So by banning single-use plastic, we also preserve marine ecosystem, thus conservation is also ensured. However, we have to understand that banning of single-use plastic is not sufficient. Now, this body is something that you can just add as a mind map after your first body, where you can talk about is not sufficient, and you can give different points as a mind map, like lack of alternative, cheap alternatives. Like single-use plastic is a cheaper goods for people to utilize. However, there are no cheaper alternative as cheap as single-use plastic. Apart from that, there is lack of specific advisory. Even the rules which have been notified, they are not very stringent. They have certain kind of lacunas that definitely hinders the idea to curb the plastic pollution. And last is lack of availability. Now, as we are talking about people who are going to use this thing, apart from cheap alternatives, we also have issue with respect to lack of availability of different things which can be used irrespective to change for in place of plastic, single-use plastic. So that is the lack of ability. So that is something you can write as is not a complete solution. In the next body, you can talk about what additional measures are needed to curb plastic pollution. The very first is promote recycling and circular economy. Over here, we are focusing more on making sure the recycling part is ensured. We have seen that how plastic have become very crucial aspect of our life. We must ensure and create sustainable plastics which can be recycled and thus participate in the circular economy. Second is eco-friendly packaging. We have witnessed rise of use of some biodegradable entities like bamboo, etc., which can replace the single-use plastic as well as plastic. Third is innovative solution. Over here, again, we are looking for some kind of social innovation as well as scientific innovation. Social innovation as in trying to carry your own bag every time instead of using the plastic. We have different kind of other options as well, using steel straw instead of plastic straw. So this kind of innovative solution must also be incentivized. And the third is waste management infrastructure. Whatever plastic that we are generating must be managed in such a way that they do not end up in environment and create issues of pollution. So waste management infrastructure should be ensured to sustainably dispose the plastic, recycle it, reuse it, etc. So that is something that you will add in your second part of the body. Post that, you have the option to write SDGs in your conclusion. Plastic has multi-dimensional impact in the idea of sustainable development. You can ensure that SDGs are specifically catered by curbing the plastic pollution. You can talk about how hunger, health, right? They all are directly related to the plastic pollution. You can also talk about water and sanitation. You can talk about the idea of sustainable cities and communities where we do not have plastic pollution. Also, 12th is responsible consumption and production, where people are conscious about their footprint, carbon footprint, etc. And then we have the three about climate change, life below water, and life on land. All of them which have direct impact on environment, they must also be conserved through curbing of plastic pollution. So that is something for question number 1. Let us see the model answer and understand how can we inculcate the same in our answer writing practice. Firstly, you can talk about the definition, you can talk about the Plastic Waste Free India campaign of India, initiative of India, or you can talk about the notification. In the rationale behind banning of plastic, you can list out all the keywords, key points, and give examples like limiting single-use plastic. You can give example of how Bangalore implemented this idea in 2016, which led to significant reduction in plastic waste generation. You can also talk about different issues and talk about how India is ensuring its commitment of decreasing the carbon intensity, preventing marine ecosystem, how the Beat Plastic campaign of Bombay is ensuring the cleanup of beaches, which have issues of plastic pollution. So this all can be inculcated in your body 1. You can give this as a mind map. In the body 2, you can list down all the points and you can give examples how different kind of initiatives can be taken to curb the idea and curb the issue of plastic pollution. Like we have eco-friendly packaging material, where brands like Paper Boat, they are using eco-friendly material for packaging. We also have different innovative solutions like edible cutlery made from millets and rice to eliminate the plastic waste. So all these things can be added in your answer. In the end, you can talk about a way forward type of thing, or you can inculcate SDG as we mentioned. So that is there for answer question number 1. Let's move on to question number 2. Question number 2. Discuss the extent of biodiversity loss and its multifaceted impact. Over here, you have the option to start with the definition of biodiversity. You can talk about how biodiversity encompasses the entire spectrum of living organism on the earth and diverse species, etc. You can also talk about the importance of biodiversity. You can create a mind map and list down all the ecological services, etc., functions of having biodiversity. That's it. This is something you can do in the introduction. Now the question is about extent of biodiversity loss and its impact. So you will talk about extent of biodiversity in the first part, and in the second part you will talk about the impacts. First part, extent of biodiversity loss. If you want to really get some good insights, you can refer to the Living Planet report The report is released every 2 years, so you can get the relevant insight of biodiversity from this report. Over here, we have learned how species extinction rate has been increasing such that more than 1.2 million species will be extinct by 2100. So that is something you can write in species extinction rate. You can also talk about different trends like decline in vertebrate population. We are looking decline of 69 percentage by present time from 1970s. Similarly, for fresh water, we have witnessed a higher rate of decline, more than 83 percentage, and in plants and fungi and invertebrates, even though we do not have enough proof points, enough data sets, but still we have witnessed at the regional level, like Germany has somewhat decline of 80 percentage. So these are the kind of extent of biodiversity loss you can inculcate in the first body along with data points. Next is the impact of loss of biodiversity. Over here, you can give different points along with substantiate the same with argument and example. Like first is reduced food security. As we have understood that every aspect of the living ecosystem is interconnected. Through loss of biodiversity, we also impact the food security. As in, think about if we witness decline of bees or insects, that will definitely affect the pollination of vegetables, etc., green plants, and thus definitely directly impact the food security. Second is decline in human health. As we have understood the concept of One Health, anything which affects animals, birds, plants, etc., will have direct impact on human health. We have seen this through various examples like through virus, pandemics, etc., where health of one living entity affects the health of other. Third is economic losses. We have understood that how environmental services like ecological services have direct impact on the economic factor. We derive a lot of products that we use on day-to-day basis from the natural substances. If those natural substances which are part of the biodiversity, they are lost, we will also lose the economic avenues as well as livelihood. Loss of cultural values. Not just in tribal community, every organization of society is dependent culturally through biodiversity. We have understood that how our cultural practices of different societies, they are directly linked with biodiversity, etc., and thus loss of biodiversity will definitely impact the loss of cultural values as well. Fifth is increased vulnerability to natural disaster. We have witnessed that how loss of mangroves in coastal region can definitely augment the disaster vulnerability of those coastal region, either through tsunami or tides, etc., leading to soil erosion of the coastal places as well as sea level rise. So we can witness increased vulnerability to natural disaster. And sixth is reduced resilience to climate change. We are witnessing a rapid degree of climate change. Now, if we lose biodiversity over here, we are definitely losing the resilience of the environment, and because of that, directly every living entity on the earth will be impacted. So that's a very holistic idea about impact of loss of biodiversity, which you can inculcate in your body. The last part, which is the conclusion, over here you can go ahead and write about different institutions, like we have United Nation Conference on Biodiversity. Apart from that, in India, we have legal provisions like Biodiversity Act and so on. So you can talk about international level interventions, local level interventions, etc. We also have different kind of other legal provisions like Environment Protection Act, Wildlife Protection Act. So all of this can be inculcated in your conclusion, and you can talk about how government's proactive approach towards conserving biodiversity will definitely help us with respect to reclaiming the lost biodiversity that we talked about in the extent of biodiversity. Over here, we can also inculcate that how citizens should also come forward and take proactive stance to ensure they are very conscious with respect to their consumption. So that is something that you can inculcate in your conclusion. Let us see the model answer and understand how we can write and learn from the same and make our answers better. The first is introduction. Over here, you can talk about what encompasses in the biodiversity, what is the importance of biodiversity through a mind map or something. Then you talk about the extent of biodiversity. Over here you give certain kind of numbers to justify the extent of biodiversity loss. Over here there are multiple data points which you can directly inculcate in your answer. Now these data points are based on Living Planet Report 2020-22. So you can definitely use this for another 2 years till 2024. In 2024 another report will come. You can update your data points accordingly. The second is impact. You can give the different dimensions, what are the possible impacts that are happening because of the loss of biodiversity. And in the end, you talk about the importance of biodiversity, and you can also talk about the measures that to be taken. That's it for question number 2. Let us go to the question number 3, which is a current affair based question. Balancing reproductive rights with the rights of unborn child raises fundamental ethical questions. In the light of recent Supreme Court judgment, discuss the statement. Over here, we witnessed a recent Supreme Court judgment where they refused to permit married women to terminate her over 26-week pregnancy. We do understand that we have certain legal provisions in India where termination of such kind of pregnancy has certain restrictions, as in we do not have certain provisions where we can allow termination of pregnancy without any cap. So there are certain clauses in the law which definitely have certain impact. And over here we are talking about how reproductive rights of a woman are against or are in conflict with the rights of the unborn child. So this is something you will tackle in the question. In the introduction, you can start with a brief about what recently happened, what was the judgment, and you can give a little bit summary about the same. Then in the body part, you will divide it into 2 headings. First, you will talk about the reproductive rights of women, and in the second, you will talk about the rights of the unborn child. And in the conclusion, we will talk about how, moving ahead, we should balance the same and making sure our ethics and the morals, that whatever principles that we follow as Indian society, are aligned by protecting Article 21, which is right to liberty for both the pregnant woman as well as the unborn child. So first, in the prioritizing reproductive rights of women, we will talk about the material well-being. The very first priority should be in ensuring the rights of the living entity, not unborn child, but the living entity, which is the mother. So material well-being is the first priority. Second is informed choice. Woman should have the autonomy to choose whether she wants to continue the pregnancy or not. It is her body at the end, and once the School of Ethics, which focuses on reproductive rights, they prioritize the reproductive rights of women over unborn child. The third is privacy and dignity. No woman should give up the privacy when she is trying to claim her reproductive rights. We have certain judgments that you can cite here, like Puttaswamy judgment about privacy. That is something that you can definitely cite here. Next is preventing unwanted childbirth. By prioritizing the rights of unborn child and limiting the reproductive rights of women, we are prioritizing unwanted childbirth. Now, such kind of practice can definitely impact for longer term, where that child might not get the right attention because they were unwanted at the first instance. And the last is gender equality. Now, reproductive rights is a burden for a woman at the end. Reproduction is a burden for women at the end. Now, that kind of burden should not be tackled in such a way that they are treated unequally, right? They are treated with discrimination. So there should be socio-economic consideration. They should be given a very personalized, as in subjective consideration, and not have a very objective cap that we have in the Act. So that kind of consideration should also be there for gender equality. Next, we will talk about the rights of the unborn child. Over here, first we'll talk about the legal protection. Over here, we will talk about the Medical Termination of the Pregnancy Act, how there are certain restrictions about the same when we are trying to go for termination of pregnancy. So over here, you are claiming the rights of unborn child. Second is Article 21, again over here, right to liberty, so right to life. So that is something that you can talk about in Article 21. Third is potential for life. It's duty for every citizen to protect life, as well as there is the element of potential for life when we're talking about rights of unborn children. And lastly, it's ethical consideration, where we talk about how killing is a form of violence and that should be prohibited. And thus, these are the substantiation for rights of an unborn child. Going ahead, we must ensure there is balance of reproductive rights of women with rights of unborn child. When we are talking about balance, we are also talking about making sure the points that we discussed, like gender equality, reproductive rights of women, bodily autonomy, along with the rights of the unborn child, the potential for life, duty to protect, etc., must be balanced and should be considered case by case such that no life is endangered. So that is there for question number 3. Let us see the model answer and understand our answer better. In the introduction, you can talk about the recent current affairs, you can expand the same, you can talk about the act, and you can talk about how there are certain ethical consideration for the same. Next, you can talk about prioritizing reproductive rights of women. Over here, you can list different points and you can definitely substantiate with them with different case studies like 2017 case of Puttaswamy judgment. Then in the next body, you can talk about rights of unborn child. You can substantiate them with the keywords, arguments and examples. Over here, you can definitely talk about the legal provisions through acts, Article 21, the right to life and personal liberty. And in the conclusion, you can talk about a sensitive balance. So this is that for question number 3. Now, this is answer writing program of Vajiram and Ravi, where you are writing answers for 5 days a week. 2 questions on static, 1 questions on current affair every day. It will encompass GS 1 to 4. All the questions that you are looking right now are uploaded at Mains Daily Questions, and the video that you're looking is on YouTube channel. You can go to vajiramis.com. Over here, just go to Mains Daily Answer, go to the respective month, look at all the questions, just click on the questions and choose file to upload your answer, and thus have certain kind of discipline to ensure you're learning in a very gradual manner as well as in an impactful way. So that's it for today's session. Thank you and keep writing.